Well, hello from a very, very hot Spain. Things seem to have settled down since my trip to the USA and to Cuba. I got back at the beginning of May, but unlike with previous trips, suffered quite badly from jet lag this time for about a week. At the same time, Judith tested positive for COVID the day after I arrived home, so once I'd finished with jet lag, then I tested positive for COVID as well, which I suppose was to be expected. Anyway, the first week in the USA was centred on the Together for the Gospel conference, as well as the wonderful teaching and also being a great place to meet up with other contacts in the Christian publishing world. This year I've been invited to represent Editorial Peregrino on the 9 March stand, which gave us a shop window to about 11,000 people who were attending. Well, many leaflets were handed out and a number of good conversations were held, but only time will tell really to see the results of the investment made for being there. My second week overseas was spent in Cuba. So I passed through Miami on the way into Cuba to pick up a suitcase full of supplies that had been prepared for me. Some medication, a laptop, a mixer desk, amongst other things, which along with other goodies from Spain that I'd managed to collect together, clothing, books and mobile phones. These were all safely introduced into Cuba without any great problems apart from paying some taxes on the laptop. Anyway, the first setback on arrival was being told by Hatniel, our partner on the island, that he and his family were leaving the island the next day because of threats to him and his family present there safely in the USA, from where Hatniel will continue to oversee the work on the island, and whilst they await the right time to return to Cuba. Sunday morning saw me preaching at the newly planted church in El Vedado area of Havana, where the congregation said goodbye to Hatniel and his family. He'd been pastoring them since their beginning as a congregation. Now that evening saw the first of 4 conferences that I was to give over the next 4 days in Havana, the capital, then a little bit east in Matanzas, then in Santa Clara, and then west in La Consolacion in the province of Pinar del Rio. Each night I had to speak for 3 hours on the sovereignty of God. So we first were in the book of the life of Joseph in Genesis 50:20. We then looked at the whole book of Esther, and then we concentrated on the sovereignty of God and the salvation of the sinner. That was in Ephesians 2:1-10. It was real joy to see so many gather, about 400 in total, and their thirst for the word of God, and what a joy to preach and speak to them. Because of donations received, we were able to subsidise, even more than usual, the many hundreds of books that were actually bought at the conference. Now, the situation on the island was a lot worse than when I was there maybe 3 years ago, due largely to the effects of COVID, the general decline in the world economy, and yet at the same time it was wonderful just to see the joy of the believers and their hunger for the things of God. It's also a joy to meet with Jeremy and Yarian, the 2 brothers that were incarcerated last July and for whom many of you were praying. They and their wives urged me time and again to pass on their heartfelt thanks for all the prayers offered on their behalf. So, thank you. Well, from Cuba it was back to the USA to attend a conference for Spanish-speaking pastors organised by our friends in the Baptist Church in North Bergen, New York. We enjoy a very good relationship with their publishing company. Their pastor is actually a member of our editorial board, and it was wonderful to be able to share something of the work of Peregrino, and especially the work in Cuba, with those pastors. And we trust that the time spent with them will benefit and extend the work of Peregrino. Well, once back in Spain and with COVID eventually behind us, it was time to get back to some sort of normality. And one of the blessings of having a reliable staff at Editorial Peregrino is that the work continues even when I'm away from the office. So, at present we have Mes McConnell's biography, Is Anyone Out There? Very near to publication. It should be going out in the next fortnight. We also have 2 new volumes in the Matthew Henry commentary series, and we're also working now on a bilingual Spanish-Arabic evangelistic book for Muslim women that we've been asked to do by Missionary Society. Please could we ask for prayer, especially for this These coming months, the summer months here at EP, sales have dramatically fallen really over this last year, probably due to the higher cost of living. It's just going to make it quite difficult over what are traditionally sort of dead months of August and July, where people just don't seem to be buying books at all any year, and even less at the moment. Well, Judith is coming to the end of another school year. She's now immersed in registration and new students for September. At the beginning of July, we'll attend together the annual Cipriano de Valera conference, and then Judith will be off to Northern Ireland for a fortnight to visit her mum and dad. She's also preparing for children's camps in August, and so she would appreciate prayer for that. Now, I'll be visiting my mum over this next weekend, the weekend of the 19th of June, then back to Spain and representing EP, the conference in Malaga the following weekend. And the following week I'll be in Portugal at a European Publishers Retreat organised by Desiring God. All that before going off to the Cipriano de Valera conference, which I'm helping to organise this year. Thomas has his first state exam on the 18th of June, and if he passes that, he'll have his second exam about 3 weeks later. Liz continues to suffer with digestive problems, and despite a change in diet, at the moment Jake is collecting European cities, London, Rotterdam, Paris, Zurich, as his firm provides tech support for different concerts and artists. But thankfully his health is holding up really well. Well, over in the UK, the celebrations for the Platinum Jubilee have taken centre stage. 70 years reign for one monarch is an exceptional achievement and worthy of celebration. Yet as Christians, we have the even greater privilege of being subjects of the King of Kings, whose reign will never end, and who awaits us in his celestial city, where we will celebrate his kingship for all eternity. Well, slightly longer this month, just because of the report on Cuba, but we do continue to be grateful, as every month, for your prayerful interest in the work that God has called us to here in Spain and further afield. So thank you, and goodbye until next month.